Okay, we are going to go over the longsword, how to use that. So the longsword is mostly an offensive weapon. It's very fast. It's fairly agile, and you can do a lot of maneuvering while you are fighting. And the main thing you want to know about it, though, is the spirit gauge and the bar right above at the top. So if you look straight up, you see the bar right above where it says Palico, below where my health bar and stamina bar are. That is going to be your spirit gauge, and that's going to be how the longsword works. So first and foremost, when you ready your weapon, you can do it two different ways. You can hit triangle to ready your weapon. You can also hit R2 to ready your weapon, which does a small attack when you do it. So if you're near something like this, you can hit R2 and it does a small attack and it readies your weapon at the same time. That's going to do the Spirit Blade 1 attack. That does give you a slight amount of that spirit gauge, which is something that you do want to build up when you play with the longsword. So there are a couple ways to build up the longsword. The first is normal attack. So you can just target something like this right here, and you can do normal attacks on it. So triangle. So you can do any combo you want, whatever's comfortable for you, really. So that's going to be the 4 combo. It's a overhead slash, crescent slash, overhead slash, crescent slash. That's basically what this does. So the crescent slash, and you can keep repeating that. That will fill up that yellow gauge up at the top. Another thing you can do is the rising slash. You can do overhead slash, rising slash, and then overhead slash, rising slash. You can follow that up with a thrust if you want to. These are all different combos. You just have to practice, figure out which ones are going to work best for you, basically using triangle and circle. So that is the gist of one way to fill up that gauge. Another way to fill up that gauge is simply by holding your R2. So we're going to get rid of that gauge real quick. We're going to use spirit attacks to get rid of it. So now we've gotten rid of our gauge. So the second way to fill that up is you can literally just hold down R2. This is not necessarily the best way to do it, but it is possible. So if you hold down R2, you'll see that it's going to cycle through Spirit Blade 1, Spirit Blade 2, Spirit Blade 3, and then Spirit Round Slash, I believe, is the final one. We'll talk about what those mean here in a minute. But you just hold down the button, and we have Spirit Blade 1, 2, 3, and then you have Spirit Round Slash. And you can see that my gauge is filling up there at the top while I'm holding that button down all the way until max. So that is another way you can do it, and then you can release the Spirit Round Slash, which will give you a 1 level increase in your spirit gauge, which again we'll go over that in a second after we go over how to build up that spirit gauge. So we're going to go ahead and just take that down again. So we got to do this, and that's going to use it up. We'll talk about all of that in just a second, but I don't want to do too much right now. The next thing that we can do is once you use an attack, so any attack like this, you can see over there it says Special Sheath. That's a third way that you can fill this up. So Special Sheath, if you use it directly after any attack, doesn't really matter what the attack is. So we're going to hit R2 and X. We're going to go into Special Sheath. That gives you 2 different abilities you can do. So it's the I slash, I'm guessing is what that's called. And then the other one is called the I Spirit slash. So if you use the I slash and you hit something, we'll do that right here. So we're going to hit this. We're going to do this, and then an I slash. You can see that the spirit gauge automatically starts filling slowly. That's something that you want to try to have going as much as possible, so then you don't have to focus on your spirit gauge and constantly building it up. You can see that it gives you basically a full spirit gauge, and then maybe even a little bit more before it goes away. So it doesn't last for a very long time, but it lasts long enough for you to do some of your combos and then go back into that spirit gauge filling bar. The other thing that you can do is, if you're in that sheath mode, is the slash, which is this right here, and that goes into it's a great way to go into the spirit thrust, right? So there's a spirit thrust, which is what we're going to go over here in a second. So there's 2 different things that you can do once you have sheathed your longsword. So we're going to sheath it. You can do this, and then that goes directly into the spirit thrust. Well, I didn't do it fast enough, but it goes directly into the spirit thrust, but it comes back the other direction. Okay, so basically you're going to do this the slash through the enemy, and then it's going to come back and do the thrust back at them. So let me see if I can do that real quick just to show it off. show how it works. So you're going to do this, R2, and then back at them with the thrust. Okay, you see how that works? Basically, you're going to go slice through them, and then you're going to come back at them. That was going on, Nova. So those are the ways that you can build up your spirit gauge. The bar, the yellow bar. Okay, the final way to fill up the yellow bar is a foresight slash. But that one's more difficult to do. You can't just do that normally. So you have to fill up that foresight slash after dodging an attack, which is kind of hard to do. But you can do a foresight slash during any combo. So after any single attack, doesn't matter what the attack is, we're going to go ahead and just attack, just you can do the overhead slash and then instantly foresight slash. You can see how that works. Now, it didn't fill up my bar because there's no enemy to currently fight, but if there was an enemy to currently fight and I had dodged their attack, you see that you see my character, by the way, turns white right there when I do that ability. He's invulnerable during that phase. So if the enemy's coming to attack, you do this, and he's coming to attack, you hit this real fast, you will dodge their attack, you will counter attack, and you will fully fill up your yellow gauge up at the top. So that's another way you can fill it up. It's not super practical because you don't know when the enemy is necessarily going to attack, but it is a way to do that to keep that gauge full. And that's what you want to do, is try to keep that yellow gauge full as much as possible. So now we have gone over how to fill up that gauge. We're going to talk about how to use that gauge, which is going to be your bread and butter. It's going to be really how you do your damage with the longsword. And that's going to be using your spirit attacks. So if we have some gauge, let's go ahead and just build up some gauge here. Boom, boom, boom. And you can see I have Spirit Blade R2 right up there is what I can go right into. So if I use Spirit Blade, it uses up some of my gauge, right? So any spirit attack will use up some of that yellow gauge. The higher spirit attacks use up slightly more of that yellow gauge. Another thing that you can do is the Spirit Thrust, and that one's basically a finisher. So we'll talk about that one last because it's essentially just a finisher move. You don't really want to do it unless you have built up levels in your spirit gauge, and there's 3 levels to that. So at this point, you're basically going to be using your spirit gauge to do different attacks, eventually getting to the final one, which is the roundhouse, or the spirit round slash. Okay, and there's a couple ways you can do the spirit round slash. One is holding down the button, holding down the R2 button until you get to spirit round slash. That's the easy way to do it. And then you attack. And you can see my bar at the top goes from white, or it goes from no outline to a white outline. If I do that again, it'll go from a white outline to a yellow outline, which is level 2. And then if we do that again, it goes from a yellow outline to a red outline. Cool. All right, so that's level 3. And at full max level, it changes some of your stuff, which we're not going to go over just yet, but I just wanted to show you how to do that. So that is one way to fill it up, is just by, you have to use round slash, basically. There's another way that you can do it, and that is, let me see if I can find it real quick. So you have round slash, and then you have spinning crimson slash will extend the duration. Okay, so round slash will build it up. Focus strike also builds it up. That's the one I was going to tell you about. And focus strike is just this right here. It's when you have a wound on the enemy and you target that wound. So it's going to be basically L2 and then R1. If they have a wound, it'll take you up a level. Okay. That's something that you can only do while you're fighting a monster. So if you're practicing, if you're just learning how to use this, then you're not going to be able to do that. But it is another way to fill up that gauge. So just make sure you're watching that gauge, looking at it, see what level you're at, because you want it to be at level 3, which is red. Once it's level 3, it automatically fills that gauge for you, so you can constantly spam your spirit attacks if you want to. So like right now, I can't do spirit attacks because I don't have enough gauge, right? I can only do spirit attack 1, and it gives me a little bit of gauge, but I can't do spirit attack 2 because I don't have enough gauge. But if I have at red, okay, which is that, I can now use as many spirit attacks as I want in a row, and it doesn't take that gauge down, that yellow gauge, right? So I can continue to do that. And that's where you get the spinning Crimson Slash. So once you have it red like this, you can keep it red a little bit longer. It won't go permanently. But let's say you want to extend that gauge. You can do it by doing a Spirit Round Slash. Watch the red gauge. It goes up. You can follow it up with a spinning Crimson Slash, which increases a little bit more. Okay? You can't continue to do that forever. It will eventually no longer increase when you do that. So you can only really do it in the early stages of the thing. So you can keep it kind of maxed for a little bit, and then it starts to drain. At some point, you're going to have to spend it. And we'll talk about spending it. I promise we'll get there. The next thing I want to talk about, though, is another way to do that round slash. You don't have to hit R2, 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 and get to that round slash this way. That is not necessarily how you have to do it. Okay, you also don't have to hold down R2. That's two different ways that you can do it. Is hold down R2 to get to that Spirit Round Slash, which again gets you to that spinning Crimson Slash. The way that I prefer to do it is by doing a combo. So the combo that I'm going to show you, there's a couple combos you can do, but the one I'm going to show you is you do thrust into a fade slash like that, okay? And then you're going to attack forward after that. So thrust, fade slash, and then hit R2 for the spirit, and then Spirit Blade 3, and then round slash, and then Crimson Slash, because we're going to get the Crimson Slash because we have that red gauge, okay? So any way that you want to do that to get to that is fine, but that is the combo that I like to do. So thrust, fade slash, spirit step, Spirit Blade, which is just RRR. So it's basically the thrust is circle, spirit step is triangle circle, and then you just keep spamming R until you do the next 3 attacks, or technically the next 2 attacks if you don't have a red bar already. But it should give you a red bar if you're at yellow. So we'll do it one more time. If you're at yellow, then you do that, and then you do this. Oh, it's not doing it. Hang on. There it goes. Boom. Round slash gives you straight into the red bar. See how that works, okay? So that fills up your gauge, maxes it out at level 3. Once you're level 3, there's a couple things that you can do. So it changes your combos at level 3. First and foremost, it changes your Crimson Slash combo into whatever this is called. So Crimson Slash, Crimson Slash, Crimson Slash. It changes that. It actually creates a Crimson Slash combo. So it's a 3 combo. The thing that I like and don't like about this is that if you just do triangle, 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 your character will start to slowly step forward. He'll encroach forward on Crimson Slash 3 every time. Okay? So be aware of that. If you don't want to move, you're going to want to do triangle, circle, triangle, circle, triangle, circle. And your character won't move nearly as much. So now we're back to the overhead slash because our bar, we ran out of the Crimson gauge. So we have to get that back again. However you want to do that, doesn't matter. Boom. And get it back like that. So now that we're back there, we can do triangle, circle, circle. And you can see that he doesn't really move as much. Okay, so this is how you can spam damage on an enemy during this phase. The next thing that you can do, there's another thing that changes, is the Foresight Slash. So we talked about the Foresight Slash previously, and that's the one where you jump back, and then you basically evade, becoming invulnerable, and then you attack again, and that fills up your gauge. So we talked about that. What this changes it to now is a whirling Foresight Slash. So if we have the red gauge up and we do this, we can do the Foresight Whirl Slash, which is what that is right there. Okay, let me get my full level again. And we're going to do an attack. And then Foresight Whirl Slash, and it makes you back up farther. Okay, so you don't really back up and then go back in, because at this point you don't need to fill that gauge back up. You're just using it as a defensive thing. So really the Foresight Slash and the Whirl Foresight or Swirl, whatever it's called, Foresight Whirl Slash, Both of those are more of a defensive move. You're mostly going to be using those if you're about to get hit to get out of the way. So that's what those are going to be. So now the last thing we're going to talk about, and really where your damage comes from on this particular weapon. Let's wait for it to go down here. Well, we'll just use it this way first. Is using up your gauge. So you have a level, right now we have a level 2 gauge, which you can see up there that's yellow. When you have a level 2 gauge, you're going to hit R2 and circle at this, R2 and triangle at the same time. That's going to do a, what are they called? Spirit thrust. The spirit thrust, if you hit an enemy, so if you don't hit an enemy, it'll do this. It'll do that. That's the spirit thrust. And we showed you different ways to do that a minute ago, where you can do the Kai slash through, or the Aya slash through, or whatever, and then you come back and you do that spirit thrust. You can also just hit R2 and triangle, and that's what it does if you don't hit anything. If you do hit something, however, which is what you want to do with it, so it doesn't spend your gauge, by the way, if you don't hit anything. But if you do hit something, it'll do a spirit helm breaker. And that's where he goes up in the air. Here's a spirit helm breaker. So boom, and he goes way up in the air, comes back down, and does a ton of damage. So you see all those damage numbers that just pop up right there. And it takes down your gauge 1 level. So just be aware that's how you spend that gauge, and you're going to be wanting to spend that gauge. So you can do that again. Whoops. Hang on. Hitting all the wrong buttons. You can do that again, even at level 1. Okay. Does damage when you come down on it. And now we have spent all of our gauge. Let's go ahead and sharpen our weapon. And the last thing that we're going to talk about, though, is using that helm breaker while you have a red gauge. So you want to build up and get level 3. However you want to do that. Doesn't really matter. So we're going to do 1. We're going to do the third one this way. So it's just R2, R2. Oh, wait, we can't do it because we don't have enough spirit gauge. But you can just keep hitting R2 if you have enough of the yellow spirit gauge. Okay, so we'll just level 3 there. And then level 4 is level 2 there. Level 3, we're going to do this attack where we come back and then we, do this whole thing, which is what I prefer to do because it's doing a lot more damage. And then you can follow it up with the Crimson Slash if you want to at the end. That's partly why I like to do that. So now, once it is red, you can do a couple of extra things, technically one extra thing with that thrust, okay? So we're going to do the Spirit Thrust, and that's going to go into the Helm Breaker, but following the Helm Breaker, we're going to be able to hit R2 again immediately after the Helm Breaker and do, I think it's called a Spirit, some sort of Spirit Slash thing, right? I don't remember all the names of it. So we're going to go this into the Helm Breaker. It's going to spend one of our levels, and then we're going to hit it again for Spirit Release Slash, and it's going to spend the second level, but you notice that it fills up our gauge again. Okay, so it fills up that entire yellow gauge, so we can then follow it up, if we wanted to, with more of our Spirit attacks, and instantly go back into that Spirit Round Slash, gaining another level. So that's one way we can do that. Another thing that you can do is, let's build that up again one more time. Another thing that you can do is you can follow it up with a second thrust or helm breaker. So you could, well, if I can actually do it correctly. So we're going to do this. Come up. Boom. R2. And then another helm breaker. Well, I missed it. If the enemy was there, or if I didn't miss the enemy, we could literally follow that up with another helm breaker and do some more damage yet again. That burns the whole thing if we wanted to do that. That's just a lot of damage you can do very, very quickly. That's like when the enemy is knocked down or something. He's not going to move for a couple seconds. You just do those back to back to back to back. Lots of damage. Very, very nice. The next thing, though, is another thing that you can do right after that. So you can do it at any point after you build up your gauge. You have any helm breaker, any ability. What you'll notice is after doing a helm breaker, and if you want to, following it up with that Spirit Slash, or, whatever slash it was, you'll notice that he instantly sheaths his weapon. So what you want to do, though, once we do this, oh my gosh, I'm hitting the wrong buttons. There we go. Boom. So he's going to go up, Helm Breaker. He's going to instantly sheath his weapon, but you can get to the special sheath, which allows you to do that Aya Slash, which again, we talked about how to build up that gauge, so you could do that Aya Slash, which will get your gauge moving again to allow you to continue to do more attacks, doing more of those Spirit Blade attacks so that you can fill up or level up that round slash again. So you get that round slash to level 1 again, and then 2, and then 3. So that's kind of what your goal is here. And I'll try to see if I can try to show you how it would work in actual play. I'm still learning and getting the button combinations down myself, so it is a little bit difficult. But basically what you want to do is once you have that red gauge, you want to use the Crimson Slash, you know, do as much damage as you can. You know, you're jumping all around, you're doing all sorts of stuff. You could do your little Foresight Whirl Slash, you're just attacking like crazy, right? When that gauge, that red gauge, gets down close to the end, that's where you're going to do your thrust. So you want to do as much damage as you can while it's red, because you're just going to be doing more damage, you're going to be attacking faster, all that kind of stuff. But then once it gets close to the end, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, okay? Then you're going to instantly go into a sheath, which I didn't do because I'm bad. But that's the plan, is instantly go into a sheath. Let me see if I can... I'll try one more time and see if I can do it. Oh my gosh. Boom. Okay, so we're going to come back over here. Stop thrusting. We're going to come back over here, and we're going to this into a Helm Breaker, into this, pull our weapon out, go into a sheath, go into a Size Slash, and then go ham trying to do as many of the roundhouse slashes as we can, okay? Doesn't matter what you do at this point. Your goal is to get back into that roundhouse slash, so you can see that I'm spinning my stuff. That's another roundhouse slash there. You just have to make sure you have the yellow energy to get to that roundhouse slash. We can follow it up with a Crimson Slash. And then you want to go crazy with your Crimson Slash attacks, however you want to do that. And then back into... Oh my goodness. Back into your Helm Breaker. All right. And that's pretty much it. That is the Longsword. Like a brief, I know it's about a 20-minute long tutorial on how to use it, but that is basically how you use the Longsword.